Hi, I'm Cole with Piranha Squirrel Productions, and today I want to be talking to you about Devastation dice. So, welcome to the Deathtrap. Came up with this idea. He's a blogger. You should go check it out. Link in the doobly-doo. And the concept is you're going to take your campaign fronts like timers and you combine it with resource dice, and that will eventually give you something pretty cool. I use it in Along the Leyline, and I'm going to be talking about it more in this video. So there's this thing called a resource dice that whenever you roll the die, if you roll a certain number, then the die drops from one level to the next. So you might be aware there's like a D12, a D10, D8, D6, D4, and each of those goes down by 2 each time. So if you've got a D12, you got a lot of resources. If you have a D4, you're kind of low. And once your dice goes below a D4, it's just gone. You lose that resource. In other words, it's a way of abstracting counting all of the arrows. It's to make less bean counting and more like actually doing things at the table. Then there's this other concept called clocks. And with clocks, you're basically ticking down how much time is left before the bomb explodes, before something amazing happens. Usually something terrible happens. So, thinking about each of those things, you can actually combine them together. You can have a resource die and a clock. So anytime the bad guy has a chance of doing something, instead of clicking down on the timer of your clock, you roll a die. And if the die is low number, then the die drops. The bad guy gets closer to the thing they were trying to do. And that's bad news for the players. So let's think about how this would be acted upon in practice, in a game. So you're going to have your die, you're going to set it at a certain level. How close is the bad guy to achieving their goal? How close is something horrible going to happen in the dungeon? Because it's not just bad guys and their evil schemes that you can use devastation dice with. You can also use it with the dungeon itself. You can imagine a dungeon sinking down into the sand or filling up with water. And as you roll and the die drops, the sand gets higher and higher, the water gets higher and higher. The ghosts begin coming out of the dungeon and traveling toward your players in greater numbers. So as it goes down, the tension ratchets up. So you can do that with stuff happening in the dungeon, or you could do it with stuff happening in the overworld. So let's think about what you might do. First, you want to set your die level. How close is it? Then the second thing that you want to do is describe what might happen if it's going to drop, right? So before the die level drops, you know what is going to happen, and you're going to be able to clearly communicate that with your players. So you might plan this out in the early stages of your campaign and plan some plot that the bad guy wants to be trying to do. And at the end of every adventure or end of every session, you can roll the devastation die, and if it drops, you can then describe what's happening to the world to your players. This works well as rumors, right? You hear rumors of an evil lich preparing a great army, and then, you roll the die, and if it drops, you describe how there's an army marching towards some local city. And if it drops again, then you describe how now the zombies are out at the front gates. And if it drops again, now the zombie army is invading your town, where the adventures are right now. So it gets closer and closer to the players as the devastation die drops, or it gets worse and worse. Maybe you want to play with chaotic magic beginning to take over the world. And if that happens, every time the die drops, maybe things get more and more crazy, more wild and epic. Or maybe you want to play with it in the game again, like I was talking about earlier. Every time it drops, the tension ratchets up. Well, welcome to the Deathtrap. Originally came up with this concept of Devastation dice. I hope you use it in your game. Full disclosure, he did do a review of my game along the Leyline. I will also link that in the description below if you would like to check that out. But in addition, he does talk about this Devastation die mechanic, and I think it's pretty cool. So go check it out. He's got a cool blog. Link in the doobly-doo. In other news, if you're wondering, because I bet this is why you're still here, right? About the secret. The secret grimoire. There's going to be another letter here in just a few seconds. And you'll combine it with all those other letters I've been giving you. And, well, maybe you can figure out the secret code to get to the secret grimoire. In it, there's a lot of cool spells that you can use to play along the Leyline, which is on Kickstarter right now. If you want to check that out, there's links in the description below. Well, that's it for me today. I hope all your games are full of dread and laughter.